The glimpse at magic number 70 finally becomes clear. Where after 7 races and 6 different winners, the final step to reach round 2 will be made tonight from the place where the first steps of stock car racing began. A beautiful day cast over the virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway, where we welcome you to the 8th and final race of round 1 in the 2022 eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series, live on Podium Esports with our coverage presented by Elite Performance Industries. A final decision awaits tonight, and we are so happy to have you along for the ride, where alongside Rachel Whiteford at the broadcast booth, my name is Kenneth Bueno. We'll have Simi Award winner Ryan Bauer producing all the shots this evening using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Well, Rachel, we finally got here. 8 races in, and this is the final race before we get to round 2 in this eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series schedule. And there's only one thing and one thing only on the mind of the drivers tonight: make the top 70, get to round 2 later this summer.
Absolutely, and it's going to be really exciting because round 2 is full of some amazing races. But speaking of amazing races, we are here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Who hasn't driven a truck around this track in the iRacing service? This is like everyone's home track. It's one of the included ones in the service. I think to many of us on the oval side, this is Daytona's Daytona, but Charlotte Oval in the truck is kind of one of those rites of passage. Like, everyone remembers their first win at Charlotte, their first race at Charlotte. This place is comfortable, it's familiar, and I think it is to a lot of these drivers too, which will hopefully make for an amazingly tight race.
And that's true, Rachel. Charlotte, known as really the home of NASCAR. All the teams are here, all the media people are here, everybody's here. And this Charlotte Motor Speedway, not too far away from downtown Charlotte in Concord, North Carolina, provides some fantastic racing. It's had a lot of history since its opening back in 1960. It's much like the other intermediate tracks we visited this season: 1.5 miles, 2.4 kilometers, 24 degrees in the banking in turns 1 through 4, 5 degrees on the main straightaway. It is a quad oval configuration, so sort of similar to the likes of Texas Motor Speedway and Atlanta that we saw earlier this spring in March, and is the same distance as Las Vegas, Kansas, and of course some of the others that we've seen over the course of the NASCAR calendar. But of course, Rachel, you cannot ignore the top 70. Many of the drivers we've seen in the top split, a lot of them are locked in already mathematically, so mostly they just have to worry about maybe going for a win and having some fun here tonight. There's a lot on the line across the entire iRacing platform. There are a lot of guys trying to punch their way in, try to bully their way in through the top 70, and ultimately it's going to get very gritty in a race that usually ends up on the strategy side like Charlotte does.
Yeah, Charlotte is huge for the strategy side, and it may be a cookie-cutter mile-and-a-half track. This place, of course, is 150 miles for our race, 241.4 kilometers at 100 laps there, and we do have 3 green-white checker attempts, no fast repairs, open setups like always, but for a mile-and-a-half cookie-cutter track, one of those D-shaped tracks that we have here, common to NASCAR in the Modern Cup Series, this one has its own unique challenges. It feels, Kenneth, it feels narrower, it feels bumpier, it feels more aggressive, it feels faster than any other track. Even your Atlantas, your Kentuckys, it feels like a much quicker track. And I think it's the familiarity that makes it more tricky. Plus, let's not forget the exit of 4. The pit in here is actually a little tricky because you've got that big bump there in the middle of 4, which really does throw the drivers off.
That's definitely true. This Charlotte track, very much known for being very confined and almost kind of like a bowl compared to a lot of the other open intermediate tracks. And this eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series is only the first step to the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series, which will of course kick off in February of 2023 when that racks up again. And if you want all the latest news and updates from the world of eNASCAR, you can sign up today, use that QR code, and get all the latest stuff from iRacing and NASCAR, the great partnership they've had together over the past more than a handful of years, and they continue to do so. The strengthening partnership of iRacing and NASCAR overall, bringing a lot of sim drivers into the spotlight, and of course strengthening the field for year after year. So right now, drivers have already lined up their fastest 2 qualifying, ticking down to 0. So in a couple of moments, we'll take ourselves trackside and head for your starting grid. See exactly where every driver and your favorite driver will be lining up for the 8th and final race of round 1 in this eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying campaign. Seth the Merchant, trying to get another win here in 2022 to cap off round 1, sets the fastest qualifying time at 29.565. He'll be joined alongside Parker White in the one truck to lead us to the green flag. Andrew Navarro took his W at Dover not too long ago in the 5 truck. He ends up starting tonight inside row number 2. He's got a very fast Michael Cozy Jr. though to his outside in P4. Row 3, Brendan John Kohler will start the 32 truck in P5. A very solid qualifying effort for Kohler, who I believe went to victory lane just 2 weeks ago at the Kansas Speedway in second split. Daniel Falkingham in the 10 will be alongside him in P6. Jordi Lopez Jr., we saw him get to the finish line first ahead of his own teammate at Atlanta Motor Speedway earlier this year. We'll see if he can do it all over again at another 1.5-mile track. He'll have Blaze Crawford to his outside in the 22. Final drivers in the top 10 include the 9 of Drew Freenarge and Tucker Minter, looking for his 3rd win this season, Rachel.
Row number 6 is going to be Jonathan Delaney in that 25 truck on the inside there. P number 12 is Daniel Botafogo on his outside in the 14 truck. Row 7 is Joel Blewett in the 2, and on his outside is Christopher Pfeiffer in the 18 truck, looking for a really good race today. Then we have Matt Danson in 23 on row number 8 inside, with Landon Huffman on his outside in the 34. Row number 9 is Kenny Brady in that 7 truck. On his outside, row number 9 is Tyler Gary in the 19. Row 10, P19, Casey Tucker in the 17, with Will Cooley in the 30 and P20.
We'll look through everybody 21st on back to P35. Will Klein in the 27 starts inside of this 11th row, and he'll have Santiago Tires, Las Vegas winner, in 22nd to his outside. Dalton Collins, Brian M. Smith among the drivers lining up side by side to P24. Before you find Walter Mann, Anthony Burrows inside the top 35, or top 25 rather. Larry Pace will be to his outside in 26. Justin Norwood starts 27th. Brandon McKissick will start in 28th. McKissick coming into this race as the highest pointed driver in this eNASCAR Road-to-Pole qualifying iRacing series. Boyd Hogan, Kyle Myers to line up your top 30. Final 5 drivers include Jake Nichols, Omar Diallo, Justin Monbourquette, Trevor Edwards, and the 31 of Justin Knobloch. Omar Diallo on back 31st. Actually, Jake Nichols on back 31st through 35th. Did not take a qualifying time here in the sim, so they'll be starting shotgun all the way at the rear of the field. It's a relatively cool evening from the Charlotte Motor Speedway. 79-degree track temp, 75 degrees in the air, winds about to the south at about 5 to 6 miles per hour, so that won't be too big of a factor. But Rachel, you already pointed it out, the bumps, the confinement of the Charlotte Motor Speedway when you're trying to go full throttle with these high downforce trucks. What do we expect tonight over the next 100 laps?
Typically, Charlotte's danger zones are going to be off turn 2 because it is kind of a tight cut there down from 2 as you come out. You can have to get trucks side by side having little issues, and of course off 4, that big bump will be one that might catch some people out, and it could cause trouble with trucks spinning through that infield. So we'll have to see what comes as we come through now towards the green flag. For Charlotte, it never disappoints in terms of action.
It definitely doesn't, and what will not disappoint is that we'll have Seth the Merchant and Parker White at the front of the field, 2 former winners here in top split of this Road-to-Pro qualifying iRacing Series campaign. Pace car makes its way down to pit road. It'll be the 4 and the 1. The Merchant White to the green flag for the final time in round 1.
Good start here out of turn 1 for the trucks as we come through 1 and 2. That first shoot down, and out we come onto the back straight here. Truck's still 2 by 2, no real messing. Oh, a couple of bit of scraps towards the rear of the field, but they're one holding together so far.
How about Andrew Navarro at a turn 4, lap 1 will get a nose ahead to the race lead. So DeMerchant and Parker White already falling to 2nd and 3rd. They've got a batch of trucks behind them. Brendan John Kohler, Michael Cozy Jr., Daniel Falkingham on this large group trying to take advantage. But DeMerchant and White already falling to the clutches of this 5 truck early on. There's one truck down to the inside that is Kohler, but he'll tuck in line. It's all single file back to turn 3.
It looks like Navarro is a little bit taped up compared to some of the other guys, and I don't know, it's easy to have a quick short run truck at Charlotte. Kind of having a longer run truck at Charlotte is the key though to a win, and you may not go off the blocks as quick, but you certainly need to last here.
And it's definitely true, and also with the fact that we're going to see a lot of understeer get formed out of these trucks because, again, we talk about the confinement. It is very narrow, this Charlotte Motor Speedway, despite being the same length as a lot of the other intermediates we visited this season. When you compare it to Kansas, and it's a completely different difference in the fact that Kansas is just so wide and so open. Charlotte feels a lot more closed in, a lot more closed off, really. And so we'll see a lot of drivers forced into dirty air. They may occur in the understeer, especially out of turn 4, where you'll try to keep the throttle in, and the truck is really not going to respond depending on how the setup goes and how, of course, the tires fall off at the end of a run. Side by side again through the top 5. Kohler this time looking to the outside. That is Michael Cozy Jr. all the way on the inside there. Parker White looking for the middle in 3 and 4. So already a couple of drivers trying some different lines, trying some different ways to get out of the dirty air. And I think, Rachel, that's going to be the biggest key, even over the first 5 laps and beyond. We're going to see a lot of drivers try different lanes just to get out of the turbulent wake that's developed from the drivers in front of them.
Yeah, I think they will. And honestly, over a Charlotte lap, turn 3 and 4 is okay because it widens. It's a tight in, wide out. So the push, the understeer, is not quite as severe. The corner that really gets you when you're on old tyres at Charlotte is 1 and 2. You got to stay off the gas so much longer in that corner to rotate when you have older tyres, and that will be the telling part here. Because getting right down to the bottom, making sure you have that good line, and getting that truck rotated is so much harder with the tighter exit.
You're watching there on board with Michael Cozy Jr., one of the many tonight sporting a very patriotic paint scheme on their truck, of course. And this weekend is the Coca-Cola 600 and, of course, Memorial Day weekend on the horizon in the United States. So a lot of guys here in this series already putting up some of the red, white, and blue trucks on their machines so they can commemorate and endure the celebration here that will happen over the weekend. And, of course, with the Indy 500, the Monaco Grand Prix happening all in the same day this Sunday. A lot of guys excited for that. You're right on board here with Will Cooley, currently in the top 17. And this, Rachel, is where everything goes haywire. We've seen it happen so many times, not only so far, at least in this race, but for every other race, something always happens in this midfield. Someone's always making a move. So there's a lot of activity when you're here. And a lot of guys really just don't want to be a part of it because some activity may result in some mistakes and cautions may fly.
Yeah, it is. The mid-pack here, the dirty air is really, really bad at Charlotte, so you'll get that old tyre push a lot earlier. So you have to be lifting off a lot more. It gets really confined. There's not as many places to go, and getting single file here is really important for these early parts of a run.
You look at the great battle around the midfield. There's Daniel Buttafuoco, one of the first cars there, the red, white, and blue iRacing machine. His Chevrolet Silverado currently in a tally against, I believe that is Matt Danson in the 23 up atop, and Drew Freenar is just in front of him in the 14 of Daniel Buttafuoco. Finished in the top 3 just 2 weeks ago at the Kansas Speedway. Of course, suffered a heartbreaking loss against Tucker Minter there and making that move in 3 and 4 to get that win in the very last stretch of the race. But Buttafuoco having a lot of speed already early on and into the top 13 as he's maintained rather steady here ever since starting back in P12. He now is on the outside. It looks like Christopher Pfeffer will look down low for the spot. Here's Parker White in the 1. Now Taylor behind Seth DeMerchant and Andrew Navarro. It looks for the moment, Rachel, nobody wants to be too aggressive here. Again, this is the opening 10 laps, and a lot of these guys are just here to have fun and just here for the long game, so everybody doesn't want to really do anything crazy, Parker White being one of them. And look how far that single line stretches all the way back to at least the top 15, where the 9 machine of Drew Freenarge and Matt Danson go head-to-head.
Yeah, quite a lot of these guys, this last round here of round 1, or last race of round 1, they're locked in. They know they're good, so they're racing for fun, which means you have 2 classes here. The guys who are racing for fun because they know they're in, and the guys who are on the cusp who need a good result. So you'll have a pretty hectic battle at the front for fun, you'll have that hectic battle in the midfield most likely as well for fun. So this could get really raucous.
It was almost 3 wide there. Christopher Pfeffer almost plucked it through the middle. Daniel Buttafuoco trying to keep pace. Here's Kenny Brady just behind him. Joel Blewett, Will Cooley. This is a battle that goes all the way from about 12th or 11th to 17th right now on the racetrack. A lot of them double file, multiple rows through. And Buttafuoco, you see him there, someone on the top side in front of that group. There's the 19 machine just behind this tally. That is Tyler Gary, Landon Huffman in the 34. They're on the back end of these side-by-side battles. There's Will Cooley, Joel Blewett going for a battle all the way to the inside. And Joel Blewett will be able to get over that. So far, though, it looks like everybody at the front all maintain the choo-choo train pace. And I guess that's somewhat of a virtue you need, Rachel, at this track. Of course, it's only 100 laps, but a lot of these guys I know probably running the NIS Fixed Series or Open Series. As a matter of fact, in the Charlotte race, the Coke 600, a lot of them preparing for that sort of endurance-style race, and maybe this could help them just a little bit.
I mean, yeah, but again, Charlotte's one of those tracks that's an iconic track. Everyone runs this, everyone knows it. It's the one where people are really comfortable. Dialing those setups will be important, but Charlotte's the one they know. They know this track intimately, and it's super familiar, which means you really can dial in that extra speed. Racing here actually is a joy. It's one of my favourite tracks on the schedule, and I think for many drivers, they know and love this place. It's just a great track.
And in some places, Rachel, you may need to have a little bit of discipline here at Charlotte Motor Speedway, especially with the different lines you can run. And in eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series race, a lot of drivers were explaining that inside on that blue and white paint on the very bottom actually seems to be very fast if you can push it right. Of course, these are different trucks. These are lower power. These have way more downforce, but there could be still some magic to get some of the grip down there. And of course, running different lanes, you got to be very patient. You got to pick and choose. And of course, you got to really keep your truck as tender as possible in order to get the most out of it. Here's a battle now for second. Parker White to the outside, and he's going to charge in 1 and 2 over Seth the Merchant. So a textbook pass by the one gets him that much closer to your race leader.
Yeah, it does here. And this is an interesting track because you'll see the same line be run by a lot of people pretty consistently. It doesn't change that much at Charlotte. It takes a lot longer to kind of come in further up the track. So in general, the line is very consistent in how it evolves. So you don't typically get multi-lanes here. You'll get one real lane, but you can defend around the top. Like, if you go high, you can actually get a huge launch out of 2, for example, and really defend that line. So we might see if someone gets underneath someone into 1, they're going to be able to defend up top and get a good launch out of 2 into 3. So it's about balancing what you're actually going to commit to.
And there was a commitment there by Jordy Lopez Jr. to take away 5th from Brendan John Kohler. Maybe a 2-for-1 here for Logitech G Altus Esports as Tucker Minter will now move to the inside on the 32, and so Kohler moving a little bit backwards. It was a hiccup out of turn 2 that sent Jordy Lopez to the inside, made that pass complete. Finally, Kohler is able to clear himself in front of Daniel Falkingham, so no issues there. And they will all stay single file once again. You can just see how far it stretches drivers in the same train until the first side-by-side battle around the midfield. That's where you're really seeing it. Tyler Gary side by side, but it looks to be Dalton Collins, and also further up the running order, we'll see a couple more drivers side by side as well, just in front of Landon Huffman, Danny Woodofoko, Matt Danson once again going at it already on the front straightaway. And Rachel, I think we're seeing the first signs of tire wear. Matt Danson out of turn 4 had to shimmy the truck back straight. He kicked the rear end out very heavily.
Yeah, 4's kind of the place we'll see trucks get kind of sideways loose at a place like Charlotte. It's the widest exit off a corner, and you've got a big bump. It can really unsettle the truck's kind of balance. It will happen, and it won't be the last one today.
And definitely not. And now he's going to have more trouble because he's fallen to 16th, and Landon Huffman is now making a say on the inside. How about Dalton Collins there, peeking through the middle? Tyler Gary, Anthony Burrows going head-to-head for 19th and 20th right now on the racetrack. Here's on board with Collins just behind here on Huffman's machine, and they're going to try and duel up here against Matt Danson on the very top side. But you have a point there, Rachel. A wide exit here at Charlotte Motor Speedway, especially out of turn 4, and you're going to have a little bit of a hill that comes up right about there once they hit the exit out of turn 4, and it's sort of a pavement difference before they get actually to the quad-oval section and the start-finish line. So once you come over that hump, it ultimately becomes a lot harder to maintain pace of it, because once you hit that crest, the rear tires start to kick up, and that truck could easily get loose. Fortunately, though, for Danson, hasn't suffered any more problems after that first initial sideways action out of turn 4, although he's going to have to deal with the consequences of his mistakes as everybody tries to tally in behind him, and that's a battle that really lasts all the way back to 21st.
Yeah, it certainly is, and we'll see this a lot at Charlotte. He does do this, and I keep describing it in such a way that it is such a track that we all know, but no, it happens a lot here. But you'll also get a little bit loose, and this is what can ride you up into the wall out of 4. That's something to be careful of, because the exit of that track with the bump is the wall, and we'll see a lot of trucks slapped out as tyres get older, including the wall off 2 as well. That one sees some regular love from the drivers, or their cars at least. But right now, Navarro's gap hasn't hugely opened up. It's a gap, but it's not fully out there yet. These guys are keeping him honest. White and Demerchant are keeping him there. Cozy Jr. is still with them. In fact, this whole front group here, up to Tucker Minter in the 6th spot, are all super close. Minter's the biggest mover. He's up from 10th, so that's 4 for him so far in the top 10.
A good charge for Minter, who was the winner just a couple of weeks ago at the Kansas Speedway. We'll see what more he can cook up here as we complete lap number 22 of 100 here in race number 8 of round 1. Just a reminder that our coverage tonight on Podium Esports is presented by Elite Performance Industries, your home for iRacing setups, apparel, and driver development. contact the EPI social media pages to get in touch and learn from guys like eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series champion Michael Conti. For more information, you can visit eliteperformanceindustries.com. EPI, your home for all things iRacing. And you're right, Rachel, a lot of the front runners all tucked in together, sort of similar to the Kansas phenomenon before our first batch of green flag pit stops. It just looks like all the guys up front either have a similar setup or all of them are just equally as quick. You see a lot of Logitech Gialtis esports trucks, so no surprise they're all tallied up together. But to see Andrew Navarro, Parker White amongst that group as well, Parker White representing the North Force Racing Group in his Toyota Tundra TRD Pro, just a lot of guys all tucked in together. It's a good sign just to see them all close enough to make somewhat of a striking distance move happen, but they're just sort of in their own group, in their own league, as we say.
Yeah, certainly are. And I think of the fast guys, everyone's going to have a great Charlotte setup. It's like the first setup you make, you know? It's one of those first setups and the first tracks you do one for. So everyone has a good Charlotte setup. It's a well understood track. And it did change a little bit when we got rid of that other stand a couple of years ago in the exit of 2. It changed kind of the way the light hits the track, but in general, Charlotte's always raced the same way, and it still does to this day, even in these current trucks. So it's a science that is fully understood, I think, at this point. So you're seeing that grouping of the fast guys really tight because it is that case, but it's not just the top guys. We're seeing this all the way back, really, to the top 15 or so. The gap is not that big. It's spread over a distance, but they're staying roughly together. There's a small gap between 6th and 7th, but it's only a couple of hundredths, a couple of tenths of a second, so they're all roughly with each other at the moment. It's really stayed close. It's dropped off a bit towards the back, but they're going for this thing. And we're on 26 right now, so yeah, the way this is looking, this could be one of those Charlotte races where we do see those stops, and green flag stops here are dangerous. It's a really tricky in because look how fast you're coming out there and how quickly that sneaks up on you, that pit exit. It is right there, and the bump can get in your way. It's almost just after that, but you know, blowing up in the middle of the corner, that is not exactly an easy chance.
And also look at that wall too. By the time you enter into pit road, if you overshoot it by just a margin, just a little hair, you could have a trip to pit road attenuator land, and obviously nobody wants that. It's going to end your race immediately. That wall added after the addition of the Charlotte Roval back in 2018. So before that, it used to just be the open grass, and if you missed it, you missed it. You just hit the grass, and you had to take a little dirty trip through the quad oval, as one driver almost does. All the way back there, that's Justin Norwood in the 33. And he could have almost hit the wall as well had he had lost the truck a little bit earlier. Fortunately, he packs it all together, but the big consequence is that he's going to fall to dead last, 35th on the running order. I think one of the first oopsies, Rachel, we've seen here at Charlotte tonight. That's a big mistake that's going to cost Norwood big time.
Yeah, it'll cost him a lot, but at least his truck's not hugely damaged there. He should be fine. But time is everything here. You lose time, you will be screwed. Especially if this thing stays green, which could really hurt.
And also to note, just last year in the 2021 eNASCAR Road Pro qualifying iRacing series, the Charlotte race was in the daytime, of course, way hotter of a track temperature, mostly closer to the triple digits, way different from tonight, which is in a sunset setting. But also to note, we did also have green flag pit stops in that 2021 edition of this Charlotte race. So we may end up just turning the page, continuing that trend of green flag stops and strategy, and that ultimately turned the page for guys like Tucker Minter, Rachel. A lot of guys that put themselves in the best place by either doing an undercut, pushing it as far as possible, or just playing the tire game against others. We may end up seeing that. So far, 30 laps in, we stayed green, and we should look at about the next 10 to 12 laps under green if we want to see our first signs of pit road action.
Yeah, I think so, and I think Charlotte's one of those tracks, even if you get a lot of cautions, you will see at least one green flag run. So having a truck that can run long is a good advantage here. It will always happen at some point, whether it's towards the end or in the middle, you will see one. It always occurs. You don't tend to get just mega wreck fests at Charlotte. It tends to be a patch of wrecks. But you tend to get a good run at some point during the race, and we're seeing that early on here. 31 laps in the book. We're a third of the way through this race, and it is absolutely going for it so far. These guys are holding two things, but we're starting to see some lines changing now as this first tire run is heading towards an end.
Yeah, line change here for Seth the Merchant, who goes to the outside of Parker White. Remember that pass happened just earlier in tonight's event. Well, he's trying to make that pass complete to get back to P2 and challenge against Andrew Navarro. This time he's going to have help from his teammate, Logitech Gialtis Esports. Working together, Michael Cozy up at the top of the racetrack, so they'll get the run out of turn 2, and DeMerchant will officially clear, make that the same case for Cozy. So Parker White will indeed fall back to 4th. He'll have some space in between Cozy and the next driver behind him, Jordy Lopez Jr. Parker White playing the game a little bit patient right now, not trying to do anything crazy, not trying to burn his stuff up either here in this stretch over the first 33 laps. And one thing to note about Seth DeMerchant and Jordy Lopez Jr., they were a part of this last year edition of Charlotte, and they finished in the top 5, both of them. Jordy Lopez Jr. finishing 2nd, Seth DeMerchant going back to finishing 3rd. So a lot of success by these G Altus Esports guys. See what they can do here, trying to replicate some of the success. Here's a look from Jordy Lopez Jr., currently riding in the top 5, and really the last truck, Rachel, in this group, unless you can count Tucker Minter, who's slowly closing in 6th place. But just once again, these guys putting themselves in another league, all of them so close to each other, and really giving no margin for a mistake either.
Yeah, they certainly are, and I would include Minter in this. It's a little bit like half a second gap there compared to the others, but Minter's going to lead in that second group there with Kohler, Crawford, Brady involved there. So it's involved, but the gap has slightly stretched compared to what we had with that. So I'll see what they do. With that second group match strategy on the first, where we see people really grouping in and coming together. Big groups pitting at Charlotte together gets really messy fast.
So we watch a majority of the field mostly going single file. Saw a side-by-side battle somewhere around Drew Freenarge in the number 9. But so far, he has single-filed himself out, made himself clear ahead of Jonathan Delaney. And so, actually, they will go side-by-side here. How about Daniel Budafoko move to the inside? And Anthony Burrows looking in the far shot, just trying to see if he can do anything here. Maybe gain some ground in these guys, get some draft as they're going side-by-side. I believe Budafoko had just put over the radio that he was sorry there to Delaney. Delaney says it's all good. Continue running here, 12th and 13th. Here on the racetrack. Delaney having a very successful entry here into this Road to Pro schedule. And Rachel, you think about the guys that are in this series, and we've said it so many times. You think about guys like Brad Davies, a former Coke Series driver. You think about Justin Bolton in that same category. Burrows, who had made the sporadic starts for Kligerman Sport last year. And then you have guys like Jonathan Delaney, who's a crew member for Junior Motorsports. He is part of one of the Junior Motorsports teams. I believe he is part of the crew that goes behind Briar LaPlatte for Lockdown Racing. And so it's cool to see that Delaney is taking somewhat of a double step. He's working with the Coke Series drivers, but also at the same time getting some experience of his own as a driver and trying to get into the series himself. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think a lot of those guys are up there working with those teams. They have access to the setups. They have access to the resources and the team kind of ethos. So you'll see that evolution come, and those drivers will basically be working with the Cup guys to basically learn themselves and put themselves in that right position. So yeah, I think that's definitely going to be something we'll see happen here. But man, I'm getting itchy. This thing is still green.
I know we expect the cautions too.
Yeah.
So oh man. I don't want to be the person that jinxes it, because I literally did it at Dover a couple weeks back, and I put myself blame Bueno on Twitter. But, you know, we've been green the whole time over the first 38, so at least for the moment, hopefully we're all okay. There's no problems here as you watch the battle for second continue to brew up. DeMerchant, Parker White, and Cozy Jr. getting awfully close to each other, and I figure, Rachel, we're going to see one of these guys come down pit road sooner than later, as White will try an alternate approach, go to the high side here, and we'll actually get to the outside of Seth DeMerchant, almost there at a turn 2. We'll make the pass almost complete on the back straightaway to turn 3, but I was about to ask, Rachel, if you're one of these guys, who do you think is going to come down first?
Of these guys, I think it could be DeMerchant. I think DeMerchant or Lopez, probably the team cars together, I think will come. I think it could be the Logitech G Altus guys might come down together, or we might see the others. It's going to be a tricky call, but I think it'll be a team call for the first pit grouping. Or it'll be someone like Kohler, Crawford, Minter, that could adjust second group, might be the first ones to duck, see if they can make an advantage, because there is a lot of drop-off around here at Charlotte. So it's going to be worth pitting a few laps early, go for the undercut.
It definitely is true, and I figure maybe for the likes of Parker White and Andrew Navarro, since they have clear headway for first and second, they may, at least from what I've seen, maybe overcut this and stretch it as long as possible. And then while the Altus Esports guys kind of pit together, get in their own way, then they try to make the stop later, have some fresher tires by the end of it here as we are closing in on halfway here tonight in round number 1, race number 8, the final one here in this eNASCAR Motorsport Qualifying iRacing Series campaign. Just to also note, Will Cooley had some connection issues. He is 8 laps down and counting. Fortunately, he is connected back into the server, and he is on pit road just trying to get back into the game. He is 35th and last on the racetrack right now, so unfortunate for Will Cooley as finally he'll fire up the engine, now come out of his pit lane and try to make some laps, maybe get some laps back if we get a caution flag thrown here tonight. Fortunately, that has not been the case. Here's Jonathan Delaney in a bit of a battle. That is Brandon McKissick there to his inside. A couple of more battles here throughout the field. This is around 23rd on back. Boyd Hogan, Omar Diallo, Kyle Myers, Will Klein, Santiago Tires, and then there's a look at Anthony Burrows and Jonathan Delaney going side by side. So safe to say we've seen the front runners go single file right here, but we've got some good action. A lot of guys making some moves here early, and they could be pivotal by the time we get to the green flag stop sequence.
Yeah, they really could be. We'll have to see how this goes because we've seen that long run kind of behavior. We thought maybe Navarro would be a quick short run truck that would fade off, but he stood strong here. He's held that gap, which has been impressive. Demerchant and White has stayed with him, but it's been pretty constant whether or not they're just happy to ride in this first stint. I think that's not the worst decision because you can actually save a little bit of fuel doing that, so it's not entirely stupid. No point leading if you don't have to. It's only the first person to finish that finishes first.
Is that a Ricky Bobby quote? I believe it is, right?
That is not a Ricky Bobby quote.
Oh, no, it's not.
To finish first, you must first finish is the actual quote.
All right, there we go.
Ricky Bobby would be, if you ain't first, you're last.
if you ain't first, just wreck him out of the way and you'll win. But nonetheless, Dustin Marquardt has just hit road in 34th. He's one of the first drivers to come in. He is 2 laps down, so there may be an issue here for Marquardt here. I believe it was going to be, at first, it looked like just a huge undercut, maybe to just try something alternatively, but unfortunately for Marquardt, there is a problem there on the 24, and he's trying to diagnose it as soon as possible, and we'll see if he ends up back out on the racetrack, much like Will Cooley is in, and now Cooley is finally back on the racetrack, putting some laps in. He is exiting turn 2 at the moment. So some drivers having some issues, but fortunately we've seen no crashes, and all the drivers are still in this race in some form or another. And I am noticing one thing and one thing only, Rachel, right now. Top 2 closing in. Parker White last time a 31.9 comparative to Andrew Navarro's 32 flat. So there may be something lurking here if you're that one truck of Parker White. He is putting some fast laps and may take the lead if he can.
I don't think so. The 31.9, 32 flat, it's not a big difference, and he's close. Yeah, he's really close. Maybe he might pass him, but I don't think he's going to go anywhere if he does, because these lap times for both trucks are on the old tyre end of the spectrum. When you look at the qualifying times, they're in the mid-29s. They're 2 seconds off pace, and he's trying to find something. You can see him trying to take a slightly different line to get a run here on the 5, but it might be, no, it won't be this time too, not close enough, but he is, you can see him trying. He wants to find something, but I just don't think there's quite enough. He's quick enough to catch up to him. I don't think he's quick enough to get past and go for it. Not at this stage of the run.
And again, like I said, I mean, maybe it turns around to the point that I said that you're maybe looking for clean air if you're guys like Parker White, because again, you want to do something differently if you're trying to challenge against the race leader, and it's worked for him. It worked for him against Seth Demerchant on that pass for second, so hopefully he's thinking that, all right, if I run the top on 1 and 2, if I'm this fast, maybe I can get a big run out of turn 2, make a pass underneath Navarro and take the lead, but that has not been the case. He's been sort of mitigated behind that number 5 truck of Navarro, and so we'll keep in tab on whether Parker White does anything before the first batch of green flag pit stops or what may have you. Here's a nice battle around the top 10, top 11. That's Drew Freenarch on the inside, Danny Budofoco on board you're looking with, and Brandon McKissick on the very high side. Brandon McKissick racking up 2 wins, 4 top 5s here in this 2022 campaign. We haven't seen him too much in top split, but again, Rachel, I mean, you can't go unnoticed for a lot of the success these guys have been having so far in the other splits, and we'll put them into the top split. You think of guys like Araja Caruth, who's been doing well, Daniel Eberhard, who we haven't seen in top split, but they've been making their own statements. Brandon McKissick being the same in that group, as now he'll make a move for 10th underneath Daniel Falkingham in the number 10 truck, and actually completes it going into turn 1. Well, the eNASCAR World of Pro Qualifying iRacing Series is only step 1 to glory, and $300,000 for the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series at the end of the year. If you want to know all the updates and the news from eNASCAR, the world of it, you can check it out with that QR code. Scan it with your phone, with any of your mobile devices, and you can sign up today and maybe put your name on the tally for the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series somewhere in the near future. And Rachel, we had foresaw pit stops in the near future. We've got him. Daniel Buttafuoco is in. Same deal for the likes of, there's another truck also down in there. It is Andrew Navarro, your race leader. So yeah, both of them in.
Leader jumped. Part White and Demerchant did not. So we'll see what they can do lap-wise. But Navarro is on his pit stop. Truck's down off the blocks. Will he come out? White's in this time by. Demerchant's in as well. So is a couple of others. Jordi Lopez in. So the teammates coming in. Seen a few more head down pit road. Minter as well. Brady is a mass pitting in now from the majority of your field, all hitting pit road.
It is practically everybody looking for 4 tires and fuel. I almost expected that we would see more separation around the field on pit road calls, but that doesn't seem to be the case. And also to note, Daniel Buttafuoco was in the pit lane, but he had missed his stall, so he is coming in once more. Finally, just got to pit road speed limit out of turn 4. There's some more trucks to follow. That includes Michael Cozy Jr., Blaze Crawford, Brandon John Kohler, Daniel Falkingham, and Rachel. A lot of smoke. These guys trying to get the most out of these trucks for the pit lane.
Oh, this isn't kind of pitting in levels of smoke. This is I saw a cop on the off ramp kind of smoke. These guys are blowing this thing up like crazy. Oh, sideways out of there. Someone's pushing this thing. Navarro absolutely slamming it here, trying to get the best lap he can in that 5 truck. But now these guys a couple of those trucks were on the absolute hammers coming onto pit road.
And again, you talked about it, Rachel, the toughness of getting down pit road at a place like Charlotte. It's just such an awkward entry where you really have to be on the brakes, and some guys realize they're a little later than expected, so they have to hop further on the brakes. They lock them up, and all the smoke appears. A lot of drivers ending up in that situation, but it looks like for the moment we haven't seen any standout pit road penalties for the moment. That did bite a couple of drivers over at Kansas a couple of weeks back, so hopefully it doesn't prove to be the same trend here tonight from the virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway. And Casey Tucker now will assume the race lead. He is yet to pit. He is 54 laps in his stint, but now Casey Tucker will come to a stop. Here he comes, locking up the brakes, maybe a little bit. Actually not. Casey Tucker will come in, his Ford F-150 coming to a very slow crawl, and that will give the lead back, Rachel, to Andrew Navarro. So maybe this call might have worked, although Parker White is still relatively close and with 1 lap fresher tires, so that does help as well.
Yeah, but it'll be 1 lap older towards the end, so 1 lap is not enough of an undercut really at Charlotte. It'll be decent, but it's not enough to really make a big deal out of it. You need a couple of laps difference to undercut really, really hard here. And considering they responded and came in the following lap, you know it was a reaction there. They decided it was time to go. I think fuel usage was pretty similar maybe, but maybe slightly less for them. So maybe 1 lap fresher laps tires towards the end, because you saw how close White got to Navarro by the end of that run. If he has a lap fresher tires by the end of this race, that might be gold for him.
It definitely might, and what I noticed there is on those 2 outlaps, Parker White was at least almost a half a second faster, if not a full half second faster than Andrew Navarro in proper lap time coming around this Charlotte Motor Speedway. And again, he gets another advantage, a 30.182 for White, a 30.686 last time around for the likes of Andrew Navarro in P2. So Parker White, although he does have 1 lap on the benefit, doesn't seem like too big of an advantage. Right there, the laps are just telling you how fast Parker White is right now as he takes over the race lead here, lap 56. How about a battle between the 2 Altus Esports trucks? Seth Demerchant, Jordi Lopez. Rachel, this is not the first time we've seen them side by side. They were door-to-door at the line at Atlanta Motor Speedway earlier this year, so once again, they'll go toe-to-toe. And they're just a couple of seconds out from Navarro and White. Not too far away. They could make a strike if need be, but I think they may strike within themselves. Jordi Lopez Jr. peeked to the inside, but thought better of it. Ticks back in turn 3.
Well, you look here, there's 3 of them in a row. You've got Demerchant, Lopez, and Minter all nose to tail there. Minter coming up close behind him here. If these 3 can hook up and push this, and yeah, you can push at Charlotte, but not push physically, but if you can hook up and get drafting together, you will go somewhere at Charlotte. So that could really leave Navarro out to dry, and White, because White is ahead right now after the stop cycle, but that gap is actually big enough. There's no draft impact there. So if these guys can hook up and really put some speed on, they'll freight train those 2.
I believe that's going to be the case here. It doesn't seem like Jordi Lopez Jr. is putting too much pressure here on Seth the Merchant up in front. So I think the teammates, I think like you're saying, Rachel, going to work together here. And they're just going to try to do all they can to pick up his most speed. And they're actually doing so on Andrew Navarro. Last time by said a lap 0.3 of a second faster. So I'm not sure if Navarro is saving or whether the pace just really isn't working on this short one right now with 42 laps to go. Here's on board with the Walter man, Anthony Burrows, just behind Brandon McKissick. And one thing to note, Rachel, about this number 8 machine, Burrows comes into this race 55th in point standings. It's still a healthy margin to top 70. He's one of the lowest in top split. I think he's going to get a good one if he can finish this one off in the top 10 tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it could be a really good opportunity for him there to get some good points here. If he could finish a top 10 result, that'd be fantastic. But I think the big difference in speed you were just mentioning is that White and Navarro are separated by 1.2 seconds. They're running as individual trucks here. They're not running together, so they're not picking up any draft effect at all. Which means that the trucks behind them, who are totally drafting, will just come along like, you know, a freight train and just roll through this thing because they've got that extra speed. So that will be where those 0.3 come from, is the fact they're in a group, and it will punch through the air a lot better for them. But yeah, likes of Burrows and Crawford and McKissick, those guys are ones to keep an eye on, especially Kohler. He's a little bit back from where he was running earlier, but there's some fast trucks there. Burrows, though, yeah, up from 25th to 10th, 15 places up, but look at McKissick, 28th to 9th.
Yeah, a lot of big movers, and I was about to say there's another big mover here, 17th to 6th. That is for Kenny Brady in the 7 truck. So we've got a lot of guys that have been punching their way through the field, and so we'll keep an eye on the likes of Brady. There he is in P6 after starting 17th. And then, of course, McKissick and Burrows. You mentioned good points, Rachel. Very, very stout runs for them. And I think if you're Burrows, you need that 55th in the point standings. You need to give yourself a little more insurance for the end of this Road to Pro season in round 1, as Brendan John Kohler will be behind this number 8 truck of Burrows. Try to make a move, but will fall out here by the time they reach turns 3 and 4. We'll remind you at this point of the race that our coverage tonight is brought to you by Battle Beaver. Battle Beaver has everything you need for your next professionally modded custom controller. With options for PlayStation, Xbox, GameCube, and more, Battle Beaver has everything you need to elevate your gaming potential. Head to BattleBeaverCustoms.com to customize your controller, and you can use the code PODIUM for 10% off. I know a lot of guys probably in this series won't be using controllers, at least if it's for another video game. We've seen some guys, I'm not going to say any, I mean, AJ Henderson, the controller king, we know he's been really fast on iRacing by virtue of just a controller, no wheel and pedal sets, but great to have Battle Beaver on board here for our coverage of the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series. Great battles around top 10, top 15, Rachel. I think that's been some of the highlights here. Of course, the lead, we're still going to be talking about all the way to the end and who's going to end up as the winner. We've just got a lot of great names here throughout the midfield. Daniel Falkingham, you think of Tyler Gary in the 19, or you're right on board with him. Drew Freenars, Jonathan Delaney, Christopher Pfeffer, Dalton Collins. A lot of these guys with some pace throughout the season. We've got some good pace tonight, and all within each other's grasp for running order position.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be seen that way, and they're working forwards, but positions right now, this is a very unusual position because we've gone green so far entirely, which I think a lot of people didn't fully expect. At least one run, yes, but not the whole race, and I thought we might see something happen at some point. Maybe we still will, who knows, but I think it's shifting things for some of these guys who maybe were banking on a caution or two.
That is definitely true, and around the marker that these guys pit, somewhat around the lap 52, 55 mark, around that window where we saw a lot of drivers come in at the same time. I believe that stop is good enough, mostly to get them to the end of this race, at least for now. It could change, of course. We did have some drivers saving fuel over at Kansas. We saw a great fuel strategy race at Las Vegas earlier this year, so who knows? The cards still may be in play for a lot of these guys, and the door may still be very much open for a lot of these guys at the moment. Seth the Merchant and Jordi Lopez have caught up to the likes of Andrew Navarro, but they have yet to make a pass, and guess who they have brought in? Rachel, 2 weeks ago winner, last race winner, Tucker Minter in the 3, into the top 5.
Yeah, absolutely is, and that's a good one for Minter. If they can really stay hooked here with Lopez and the Merchant, that'll be big, because that's 3 team car trucks together, which will have a big impact here. That will be really important for them from the end, especially if we get any cautions, because they can block and race each other.
And so here's an onboard look from Tucker Minter. Just a couple of feet, a couple hundred feet away from Jordi Lopez and Seth the Merchant, but so far, I mean, they've all been single file. That's been the case for all of them right now. Not really doing anything crazy. Don't want to extend their hand out too much, but here is Brendan John Kohler, the inside of Anthony Burrows. This is the pass complete for P10 if he can do it. It's a nice move, a nice run in the middle of the corner in 3 and 4 for Anthony Burrows. He will nose ahead in his Ford F-150 by the time they cross the line for lap 69 of 100, closing in on the final 30 laps of the race. And Kohler will again strike down low. And Rachel, one thing that you can do on that outside lane is play huge defense. And Kohler, just staying on the inside, cannot find a way around this A-truck.
Yeah, sometimes a truck can be 3 lanes wide, and I think this is one of those cases where that is happening. It's been good so far, but there's some guys here who I think have got faster trucks right now that might be able to get through, unless he can defend this.
It's interesting thinking about that, because Kohler 2 weeks ago at Kansas, he was playing the defense on a green-white checkered restart at Kansas Speedway just a couple of weeks back. So now he's trying to do a little bit more of offense this time around in the middle of the top 10. But it's been a great run for Brendan John Kohler. I mean, rated as the 32nd truck, number 32 in this split. Of course, I believe this is the first time we see Kohler in top split competition all year long in round 1. So good to see Kohler make the step up after the win at Kansas. And of course, nice to see that he's making a fantastic run out of what is an opportunity given to him to run in the split, which really has floated around that 7,300 iRating range. It's been an average over the first 7 races of 7,327.4. So it's very high iRating numbers for a lot of these guys. Kohler making the most of it right now. As we'll turn our attention back to Jordi Lopez Jr. and Rachel. We've got all the teammates so far, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, being as calm as they can be. But what I'm surprised about is that they really haven't made a move on Andrew Navarro. They've just been kind of there in the dirty air. Not sure if they're just starting to fall off on the run. Maybe Navarro is starting to pick up the pace after a lackluster start from the fresh tires on the green flag stop, or whether these guys are just being a little more patient for the end of the race.
I think patient for the end of the race is now the time to throw that out, because we're in that window here. But I think we'll see these guys maybe come down once more. Maybe. I don't think they're good at the 450, but splash and dash, maybe take some fuel, no tires towards the end here, or I don't know. I think maybe they're hoping for a caution.
And of course, 2 weeks ago at Kansas Speedway, there were no cautions. We went flag to flag, green to checkered, and that threw a lot of guys off, because for most of the series we had at least 1 caution to throw out on the racetrack, somebody getting into trouble, somebody making a slight mistake, and then of course iRacing Control throwing out the yellow flag and bringing us some moment of calm as Andrew Navarro just struck the outside wall in turn 4. A large mistake there for the 5. It made really in the 4 and the 11 just that much closer. But the understeer is starting to kick in if you're Navarro, and that is not helping right now. Navarro not really keeping up the pace. He's been able to maintain stagnant to Parker White, about a second and a half, almost in that range. But at this point, he's just starting to fall off dramatically, and that damage to the truck on the right side really isn't going to help here if you're Navarro in this case.
No, it's going to cost him a lot, really. A little bit of a slap at Charlotte can really cost you a lot of time. A lot of time. And I think he's going to fall into clutches here at the Merchant to Lopez. And probably Minter as well. That truck, it'll be just off the pace going through the corners. It'll mean to be off the gas a little bit longer, trying to rotate. It's a big deal at Charlotte.
It's going to be big for Navarro if he falls these 2 spots short, maybe even 3 or 4, because if you look back, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, the Merchant, Lopez, Minter, and Brady are all within about half a second, I'd say, 0.6 of a second. So it is very close, and of course, all of them trying to catch up to Parker White. It looks like Navarro will give way here to DeMerchant and company. Navarro just chirped over the radio. I'm not sure exactly what he said, but maybe it's just, I'll let you guys go on by. I'll just not really fight you on this case. I'm just going to run my own race and see what I can do to diagnose my problem. So as the Merchant goes by in P2, all trying to catch up to the number 1 truck of white, we will remind you with around 25 laps to go that our coverage tonight on Podium Esports is brought to you by Boosted.biz. Boosted builds a custom platform for your brand to sell your products. They take care of everything. You can pay nothing and let them handle the rest. To get started with your online store, you can visit Boosted.biz today. And Rachel, I'm going to go back to this point just because I've been harping it mostly all season long. The strength of Logitech G Altus Esports now forming in full sway tonight. And I think it's been somewhat of a calling tonight at Charlotte Motor Speedway, one that they've been looking for, just because past couple of weeks they have had success, but they've had some races where they really didn't do all too great. And I think tonight really is the chance for them to pick things back up, get their backs off of the wall, and start round 2 at Mid-Ohio with a lot of strength and a lot of purpose, especially since a lot of them, majority of the team, are into round 2. They're locked in.
I think it is, and I think it's going to be an evolution of this team dynamic that they've got here at Logitech G Altus Esports, where these guys are learning really that real smooth connection working together. And how many NASCAR's not really a team sport, but you can have big advantage by playing with teammates. And in the world of esports, it's even easier. So it can be a big advantage. You can really do a lot with that.
That's definitely true. I mean, we see it in real life as well. Not really with the teams, we see it with manufacturers. You think all the Toyota guys, when they come in on pit road together, the super speedways, all the Chevrolets try to work together in some races, so do the Fords as well. So they kind of get in their own little cliques, and they try to advance their team chemistry, at least in that aspect, as much as they can. And it's been exciting to see what Logitech G Altus Esports has been able to cook up again. One of the larger teams on the iRacing platform, a lot of them in full force last year in 2021, a lot of them getting far over to round 2, and even somewhat into the eNASCAR Contender iRacing series that we're going to be holding later in 2022 to see which top 20 drivers enter to the bottom 20 of the Coke Series in 2023. And so far they have been lights out, pretty much home run out of the park, and all 3 of them running 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. The Merchant, Lopez Jr., and Tucker Minter out on the racetrack. But with 20 laps to go, of course, still no concerns for pit road right now, although we do have only one in pit road. That is Dustin Monbourquette, who has kind of stayed there for the most part. Mid-Ohio at Indianapolis Raceway Park. It's been so long since even the real-life truck series has gone to that track in Indianapolis, Darlington, Bristol Dirt, and then the last sort of normal track in Texas Motor Speedway, which we've seen intermediates before. So round 1 had its little quirks, but round 2 is going to give us a crazy challenge for the top 70.
Yeah, it really will, and that round 2 is going to have some insane races. Like Mid-Ohio is one I am super looking forward to. Personally, always been a road course truck aficionado. That's been my wheelhouse, and I can't wait to see them run at Mid-Ohio. That place was nuts in the e-cars. In the trucks, it'll be really, really fun. That will be unusual for these guys, I think. It's no more sport, but it will be a very wild, wild ride. And there's some phenomenal tracks coming up that round. I think this will really test these guys as we go for that final 20. It will make a huge change, I think.
Yeah, I think it's sort of like, you think of like a rhythm game in round 1, at least from what I saw, and then round 2 is just, all right, whatever rhythm you built up with these short tracks, with these larger tracks, with these intermediates, you're going to cut it off now, and you're going to try to play all overall game. You're just going to try to be good all around, and that's really is what's going to test these guys, and that is ultimately what's going to set up the 20 drivers that end up into the eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series later this year as well. So that means it's going to be even more pivotal. There's going to be more on the line. There's going to be a lot more for these drivers to explore in order to get every little bit of advantage that they can. And I think it's not most sport, but Mid-Ohio, I mean, it's been a great Xfinity Series track in real life and on the sim. Also a very intricate course. The Indy cars also go there as well. And it's just going to remind me of how bad I am with these type of trucks at road courses, because it is unbearable for me. It's great for these guys. They know how to do it. For me, I don't know. I can't do it.
It's about balance, and you will saw that wheel a lot at a road course, but it's all balance, and the truck will flick around really nicely on the road courses, so it's a really fun stock car to drive. Honestly, of all of the cars, it handles more like the Cup car, and even then, I think it's just a little bit more planted because of lower power, so you're trying to get an experience a lot like the V8 supercars, I think, in the truck. So it provides a really fun racing experience. The thing will square up and run straight on the road course really easy, so it makes for a blast of an experience. It's very visceral driving. It's like driving the late models on the road course, which by the way is a horrific odyssey to set up, right? Because they don't want to do that. But it does make for a very, very fun ride, and it's a lot of enjoyment. It's kind of got that old school Can-Am vibe to things.
Yeah, and definitely different from a lot of other cars you can bring onto the road course scene in iRacing. Of course, we have GT cars, we have Indy cars, we have cars that really are catered to the road course racing style, and these trucks really aren't. But when you bring them to a road course, that's sort of the magic of it, because they're not accustomed to running at that type of setup. You put them on a track like Mid-Ohio, or even any other road course that NASCAR visits now in real life, or even across the iRacing platform, and you're sure to have some sort of fun and a lot of learning. You're going to have a big learning curve. We just had a pass for second, though. Very interesting move for position. Jordi Lopez Jr. decided enough was enough behind Seth the Merchant, and now made that move complete for second. Of course, they are still 1.7 seconds behind Parker White, who will lead this thing now to 12 laps to go from Charlotte. But it's a little move that can make a big difference. Lopez Jr. now trying to separate himself from his other teammates behind him.
Yeah, he really is. And I think this is where these guys are deciding now is the time to race amongst the teammates. And Jordi Lopez Jr. really wants to swing at that. 1.7 seconds to Parker White. There's a big gap with 13 to go. That will be a really challenging gap, I think, to fill in here. But I have a question for you, Kenneth. What do you think the first vehicle I drove on the Nordschleife was when that first raced in iRacing?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
It was the truck?
Right. Yeah.
It was at the Nordschleife.
Yep. It's a
Oh,
blast.
man. Oh, that's a trip. That's a trip. I've driven the Nordschleife in other sims. I haven't done it on iRacing yet. I think I'm missing out. But to put a truck on there, that's insane. I don't know how you
Two best truck tracks, Nordschleife and Mount Panorama. Bathurst in the truck is epic.
Man. Elevation changes in that it's insane. Because I mean, you think about the cars that have all-wheel drive, the ones that have traction control, and then this truck is just an all-out beast on the rear tires, and you light them up. Imagine going over the hills, going down. Oh man, big heavy truck. That's intense. We got a great intense battle for P3. Now Tucker Minter is trying to get around Seth the Merchant. So I don't know what's happening here. Maybe a pass for position just because it's so late in the race and they know what's at stake here if they want to catch up to Parker White, or if there's something else at hand. But the Merchant is practically getting left for dust. And how about Kenny Brady, who started all the way back into the midfield? P17, he's now up to 5th, and he has a chance for 4th on forward for the top 3 tonight.
Yeah, this could be huge for him, and I think that could be a really big one for them there. But, well, we'll see how this goes out in the end here. But Brady, I've been really impressed to see what he's done with this. He is close to the Merchant, but I'm not sure whether he'll get that gap or not. The Merchant is very tough to pass.
And the Merchant, one of the tougher, another truck into the here from the virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway in Concord, North Carolina, and the gap only continues to grow. It's a 1.8 second gap to Parker White in the one truck, who has seemingly dominated the second half of this race, and he was hanging tough behind Navarro and company, just riding around second and third. But what can you say about the performance so far for White in these final 8 laps as he tries to close it out and get his second win of the 2022 campaign?
Yeah, I think he's in a good position to have that here. The gap is open between him and Jordi Lopez Jr. by another 10th, so if he keeps it on the track, keep it the black stuff, he will come home with a win. It's going to be hard to beat him here. The time gap is big, unless we get a late race caution, which will throw a huge spanner in the works.
And there's a look just how far the guys are. Second on back, Jordi Lopez Jr. has put himself in his own place amongst Tucker Minter and Seth the Merchant, so maybe the pace really starting to come into the ranks for the number 11, really starting to put on some faster lap times here. And that time just a tad faster than Parker White, closed into 1.7 seconds. But the time may not be on Jordi Lopez's side if White just continues to put up consistency, because you can be faster, but you need to be dramatically faster in order to close in that gap and be in position for the race win. This time by Parker White will close in on 6 laps to go from the virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway. The track temp has I believe it's gone up from the 79 degrees now up to 84, 75 degrees on the track temp, and it's a beautiful sunset evening here in the Sim, North Carolina landscape. And there's a gap once again, some lap traffic up in front of the one, but Parker White undisturbed as he comes back to turn 3.
Yeah, he really is here, and 6 to go. This could be a really strong run for him. It's funny how Navarro just dropped out of the picture after that first strong run here tonight. We thought we'd get so much from him, but I just don't think we're going to see it on board here with Will Klein. Looking forwards here in the field. This is back in 18th place, looking towards the rear of Delaney. You got Dalton Collins just up ahead of him. Looking at the inside here, goes for the move, keeps it in there. Down on that blue line. But that middle line is really good for defense right now as the track's hotter, but he'll get under there as they come out through 2. Here comes the 35 as well. Kyle Mayers. And they go shooting through. Ooh, we're going to go for a bit of spicy racing here in the last laps.
Man, almost made it 3 wide there with Delaney kind of stuck in the middle, and Delaney had to run the middle of his truck way sideways, and almost contact there with the 27 of Klein. Could have put Klein in the outside wall. will stay green. Of course, no contact really between the two. Kyle Myers trying to be as aggressive as possible, and that pass is complete for 17th. He's got Dalton Collins about 0.6 of a second ahead of him, so there may be something he could work with in the final 4 or so laps. But ultimately, things are only getting better for Parker White as he will cross the line for 3 laps to go. Here's a look at Kyle Myers once again, playing some defense, and all the way ahead back to turn 1. The final handful of miles for Parker White as he's still 1.7 seconds ahead of Jordi Lopez in second place.
Certainly is, and it's been a strong race by these trucks at the front here. Minter, I'm really surprised to see him past Emergent here and get a better result, although it could be a tactical move by the team for points because he is worse off than Seth. So that could be a move to kind of really cement the rest of the team's positions here.
That is definitely true, and also you don't want to infight too much because I mentioned Kenny Brady, who stepped into the top 5. If they go side by side, ultimately they're going to lose to other trucks that are not part of their team. Brady, Navarro, McKissick, Cozy. Well, Cozy is part of their team, but Blaze Crawford, Anthony Burrows, guys all the way back there, they do not have a factor for G Altus Esports. So ultimately, they decided to play it calm, and they're now 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. They're still chasing Parker White, who will get the white flag from the virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway, and he kept his foot in 2nd, kept himself in 3rd, made a blazing pass on the outside and set the Merchant to get P2. And ever since that first batch of green flag pit stops had the fresher tires, and Andrew Navarro put up faster laps by almost half a second. And coming into 3 and 4, it's been dominant Parker White in the last sector of this race. And out of the 4th corner, Parker White will get win number 2 in round 1. Parker White wins at Charlotte.
Phenomenal run by Parker White. As behind him, Lopez Jr. and Tucker Minter, Seth Merchant will come home. Those 3 Logitech G Altus trucks will come in here for the final end. Kenny Brady, Navarro coming back in 6th. That's one that surprised me, I think. I expected much more.
And this comes with the news today. Parker White on his alt account had got 9,000 iRating. And White, I mean, one of the best drivers so far over the past year, has grown exponentially since 2020. And Parker White now ties with Tucker Minter for having more than 1 win in this round 1 schedule. Of course, Tucker Minter winning at Richmond, then getting it at Kansas. And there hadn't been a multiple time winner since tonight, as Parker White will bring it down to the start-finish line and will burn the rear tires. It's a celebratory moment for the red, white, and blue number 1.
Burning it down here on the front straight at Charlotte Motor Speedway, a track that we'll see a lot of over the weekend. And yeah, he deserves this one. Big run here by White. And it was the pit stop cyclos that slightly lap later that might have just been the benefit for him, I think. And the damage, of course, we saw in Navarro, that really cost him.
Let's look at Tyler Gary, Daniel Falkingham giving their congratulations and also getting a bit of burnouts there before they head for pit road. And Parker White parks it behind the start-finish line as he wins his 2nd race here in 2022 and ends round 1 with a win. That's going to mean a lot moving over into round 2. Here's your full field order as it stands at the checkered flag from Charlotte. Parker White wins here in a flag-to-flag affair by about 1.9 seconds over Jordi Lopez Jr., but you got to applaud the effort by Logitech G Altus Esports tonight. Jordi Lopez Jr., Tucker Minter, Seth the Merchant, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. We'll talk to White, Lopez, and Minter by the time we end this broadcast tonight on Podium Esports. Seth the Merchant, of course, in 4th. Kenny Brady racking up the top 5 after starting 17th. A very quiet but stealthy run there for Brady. Very strong run overall. Andrew Navarro, unfortunately, could not pick up the speed like he did at the start of the race after starting 3rd, but Navarro still gets a lot of good points, and that should get him into round 2, no problem, as he finishes 6th. 7th place would go to Brandon McKissick, who was very good off in the point standings. He was already locked in by a large margin, but get some extra insurance here tonight. Anthony Burrows goes from 25th to 10th, Rachel, plus 15 on the charts for him.
Yeah, he does indeed. 11th is Collier there, Brendan John Collier. Daniel Falkingham in 12th, Drew Ferinaz in 13th. 14th, Tyler Gary with Christopher Pfeiffer in 15th place. Behind him is Dalton Collins, Kyle Mayers, Will Klein, Jonathan Delaney 19th with Casey Tucker in 20th. And the last drivers in the field there are, of course, 21st, Boyd Hogan, Santiago Tires, Landon Huffman 23rd, Larry Pace 24th, Justin Knobloch in 25th. with rounding out your top 30, Matt Danson, Jake Nichols, Joel Blewett, Brian M. Smith, and Trevor Edwards. And behind them, it is Daniel Botafogo in 31st after a tough race for him, Umar Diallo in 32nd, Justin Norwood 33rd, Will Cooley 34th, and Dustin E. Morbeckett in 35th.
And not a great race for the guys in the rear of the field, especially for Botafogo, who had done so well to start the race. So unfortunate to see it all go awry here from Charlotte. But I think for the most part, Botafogo is into round 2. So at least with this poor finish, it won't really mean all too much in the grand scheme of things. He's going to be on to round 2 later this summer as we head to Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course later in the year. It is our time, though, to head to Victory Lane and talk with your race winner, the number 1 truck, Parker White. And Parker, it looked like you turned on the jets by the time you got those 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles. You were hanging in second, hanging in third behind Andrew Navarro to start this race, all single file. What changed there on that first round of green flag pit stops to give you the lead and, of course, set you off for what was a dominant second half performance?
Yeah, in that first run there, I was just kind of chilling behind Andrew. I felt like the rear end was stepping out on me, so I let Seth and Cozy by, and then I realized, oh, this thing might not be as bad. So I went back around Cozy and Seth, just stayed behind Andrew until green flag stops, and I actually said on the radio on lap 50 that I was pitting, and then I think that made Andrew think that he needed to pit there, so he pit. Then when I knew he was pitting, I didn't want to pit behind him, so I just went around for another lap, and I had a really good pit entrance, really good pit stop. Then right after that, I got on the track, and I was catching Andrew at like an insane rate, so I was like, he probably taped it up, and he's just going to clutch and save his temps and be really fast long run. So I just took advantage of that and just went by him. He let me right by, and I was just going to focus on putting down consistent lap times, which I felt like I did a really good job of. Then I think Andrew said something about hitting the wall, so that kind of took him out of contention. And then I was worried about the Altus trucks behind me because I knew they were going to be fast, but um, just put down a ton of consistent laps there at the end. I had a pretty good gap, so I don't think they had my draft. So just a really good drive overall. Just couldn't ask for anything better.
And of course, with like you said, all the Logitech GLTC Esports trucks behind you, I was about to ask how nervous you were there as those guys were kind of teaming up behind you. But ultimately, I mean, your second win in round number 1, of course, your first one came at Bristol, was a long-awaited win. But what ticked off for you right here at this intermediate track? Because I know you had done well, obviously, in the previous weeks before that Bristol win, and even at the other intermediates in the schedule. But it looked like just things went completely right for you tonight. What was the best part about the Charlotte Motor Speedway for you that really ticked in your driving set, or what was it that made you such a special driver here tonight in this race particularly?
Yeah, Charlotte is definitely my favorite track. Well, it's probably my second behind Homestead, but I was kind of disappointed when I saw this as a night race because I love driving this track in the day. But I got in here. I was expecting this race to end under the lights. Like we were testing in C Open the whole week. That was at night, but it it kind of lacked a bit of grip, which kind of helped me. So I just tried to use that to my advantage. But like I said, Charlotte's been my favorite track for just about a year now. So just that definitely played into my favor there. But in 3 and 4, I felt like I was really good at hooking the paint. So yeah, just I love this racetrack.
I'm gonna give you props. I'm gonna give you props because you said second to Homestead, and you know Homestead is my pride and joy in Miami. But nonetheless, Parker, I want to talk about one thing and one thing finally: the progression of yourself as a sim racing driver. Of course, back in 2021, you had made some starts here in Rotor Pro, but you really didn't make a full-time effort. And obviously, you didn't get into round 2 just because of the lack of starts. But now you participate in all of these races, you take 2 wins, and now you're clear into round 2 at Mid-Ohio later this summer without any problems. Walk us through how it's felt to progress as a driver and to only get better and make these further steps towards eNASCAR glory.
Well, I just got to put this one on my team, North Source Racing. Presley Gilson sent me a message back in August last year, and I knew I'd accept that. I really liked the team I was with. I had a lot of good friends on that team, but I knew that it'd have to come to an end eventually. So I went over to NFR. I got to race with, or I was teammates with guys like Santi Tierez, Colin Keister, Colin Bowden, and we all know how good those guys are. So I was able to learn a lot about driving and setups. But just got to thank Sandy because he was basically building the Pro Series setups last year, and I just tried to take a ton of those and just see what he was doing, and same with Road to Pro. And we got Vince Marsh as a builder, and he is just insane with the truck. Like, he knows everything about this. If I have a question on how the handling is supposed to be, I'll just ask him, and he'll have the answer. And it's just really special to me because I was able to build this set off of, I forget what track it was, but I think this is the first time I've won on a set that I've built, so that's pretty special to me.
That's a proud moment. Of course, North Force Racing, all the support they've given you over the past year or so with your progression here in the sim racing space. Of course, Parker, on behalf of our team here at Podium Esports, want to send you a warm congratulations here from the virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway on your second win. And of course, good luck in round two. I know it's going to be a wild round for sure.
Yep, thank you, Kenneth.
So Parker White ends up closing it off here at Charlotte Motor Speedway, his second win in this 2022 campaign. And Rachel, you've got the driver who finishes in second just behind the one, Jordi Lopez Jr.
Certainly have one of the Logitech Gialtis Esports drivers, Jordi Lopez Jr. Great run tonight. Second place is a fast one here. You guys seem to be really hooked together as a team tonight. Was that something that was going on?
Yeah, like we all seem to like try to stay together, because draft is important in a track like this. It's just unfortunate during green flag pit stops, like our stops was just like too slow, and Parker was able to build that gap to us, and we kind of just stalled out from there. But it's a strong result overall, and I'm excited to carry the momentum to round two and go from there.
Round two. Yeah, round two is going to be a strong one. How are you feeling about Mid Ohio?
That's my favorite road course track, so I really I won't accept anything but a good finish there. So I'm just gonna hope for the best and hope that I can execute a top 5 there.
Oh, we'll have to see how that one goes down. Green flag to green flag tonight. Was this something you expected from Charlotte?
Uh, yeah, sort of. I mean, last year we had a very long green flag run as well, and I was pretty certain that people were going to drive it a little bit more conservative, considering that some people were still like not comfortable in points. So I kind of expected it.
Yeah, certainly does there, of course. And I think it obviously is something you guys, as a team, I think built into with the way you were setting the cars up. The pit stops that happened towards the halfway point there. Were you guys planning to come in then, or was it a reaction to what Navarro did?
No, I mean like we were just trying to drive it past lap 50, so that way for our second stint we could be comfortable and push towards the end without having to worry about fuel or anything like that.
Fair enough. Well, anybody like to give a shout out to or thank?
Yes, my team Altus Esports, VRS, Logitech, Cube Controls, Racetech Seats, and shout out to Matt Danson for the amazing car that he made the day before the race. And just for the team for the hard work for round one. Like I'm blessed to be here.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Jordi Lopez Jr. coming home today in second place from a seventh place start on the grid.
Thanks, man.
So a great finish for Jordi Lopez Jr., but also a great finish for the driver who finishes just behind him in Tucker Minter. Tucker, you finished 19th in the 2021 edition of this race. You finished in the top 3 this time in 2022. Must have been a great feeling here as you had a lot of speed in that 3 truck tonight.
Yeah, it feels really good to come back here and finish third. I really hate this racetrack. I struggle here a lot. I can't understand the way you're supposed to drive it in a truck really. And last year I was really, really bad, and I got caught up in a couple of incidents as well where I almost got spun out. But this year, luckily, it was smooth sailing and it started in the top 10.
Of course, started in P10 and then worked her way up to third. So safe to say, relatively a hard charge here by the end of this race here from Charlotte Motor Speedway. And of course, this race, apart from 2021, which had 1 caution, this one had 0, flag to flag all the way. Much like your win 2 weeks ago at Kansas, how was that to handle with your teammates around you and working the strategy to make the one stop possible in the middle?
Yeah, it's really frustrating this season how it's set up. Pretty much every mile and a half race is set up to be a fuel mileage race from the start. So it's not really not always about who has a better long run setup or who drives better. It's more about putting yourself in the right position in the draft. And I kind of lost touch with the front pack. I was struggling with some of the way the truck was handling. I was struggling to keep up with the lead pack, and then some of that was also probably on me. But it made me not hit the fuel number I wanted to hit. But in the end, that might have worked out better because it let me come out close to Jordy and Seth and kind of stay in their draft, and that allowed me to save my tires a bit to get Merch at the end after he fell off.
Of course, making those moves to get into the top 3. And of course, with the wins that you carried through the season, both at Richmond and at Kansas, and now with this 3rd place finish tonight, safe to say you're going to be on to round 2 in July later this summer. What are your thoughts about the schedule up for the grabs later on this year?
Yeah, it's really great to win the round 1 championship. It looks like this season after finishing 2nd last year. I hope this year we can carry a little more momentum. Last year started out at round 2 on a rough way with Knoxville getting wrecked, and then some races after that just didn't really go my way. So I'm looking forward to Mid-Ohio. I enjoy Mid-Ohio, and I'm pretty good on road courses, so I think it'll be good, especially with all the resources we have at Altus with our partnership with VRS and how much I can compare data to Jordy or Dave and all of them. It's going to be good.
And Jordy, with that interview with Rachel just a couple of moments ago, he said Mid-Ohio was his favorite road course track. So I guess maybe you two could go at it just a little bit as teammates, have some fun over later in July, of course, running for the round 2 race all the way to the Contender Series later this year. Tucker, on behalf of our team here at Podium Esports, of course, want to send you a huge congratulations on this 3rd place finish here tonight from Charlotte. And of course, best of luck in round 2. It's going to be a lot of fun to see you there.
Yeah, thanks guys for broadcasting Top Split all season, and thanks to everybody at Logitech G Altus for all the help they've been. It's been awesome to be up front in every race this season. If you just look at our points total, it's pretty insane. And then one last thing is Jordy's pretty good at Mid-Ohio, but he's no Will Norton at Mid-Ohio.
All right, well, it's going to be a lot of fun. Tucker Minter ends up P3 here tonight from the virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway. Rachel, it's our turn to take our last thoughts here on tonight's broadcast. And the only thing I can say is breathe in, breathe out. Round 1 is done. Top 70 decided for the most part. I believe there's still some splits that have yet to finish right now. So we will get official word later on in the evening as to who exactly is confirmed, especially around that top 70 cutoff. But round 2, finally here later this summer. We get to take a little bit of a break. We return around July 4th weekend, July 7th on a Thursday, where we will end up at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. We talked about it earlier in the race. You said you're very excited for this one. Round 2 is going to be so much fun.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. I cannot wait myself the whole of round 2, not just Mid-Ohio. We've got some amazing races coming up, and this is when the fight will really be on for this series. I can't wait. I know you guys at home cannot wait either. I know Kenneth can't wait. We're excited. Roll on July 4th. It won't just be fireworks for all the whole Freedom Party. It'll be fireworks on the tracks here as we get ever closer for these guys to Contender. But Green Flag Charlotte, man, who thought that would happen?
I didn't. I know you didn't. I don't know anybody didn't, but still a great thing to see. 2 straight races in a row with these intermediates. Flag to flag, we see some great strategy racing. Of course, some great winners. 2 different winners within the past couple of races. Of course, with Tucker Minter, Parker White, both of them getting those 2 wins in this season. Of course, round 2 is still ahead of us, but there's so much more to cover in the world of eNASCAR. If you want to find out all the latest news and the updates from eNASCAR, from Road to Pro to Contender to the Coke Series, you can sign up today using the QR code and get all the latest stuff from iRacing and eNASCAR as they continue their partnership through 2022 and beyond. So for Gary Sexton and John Theodore over at Podium Esports, for our producer this evening, Ryan Bauer, our camera builder, Dougie Beard, our overlay builder, Michael Hall, Nicholas Weatherby on our social media, and for my colleague in the booth tonight, Rachel Whiteford, my name is Kenneth Bueno. So long, good night from Concord, North Carolina, and Charlotte Motor Speedway. We'll see you 1 month from tonight, more than 1 month from tonight, at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course for the opener of round 2. We'll take it to Casey Kerwin, who's doing the NIS Coke 600.